Hi, my name is Drew Jones of Drewsguitarshop in Seattle, Washington, and I am making this video to talk about this cool old mid-50s Harmony Stella. I mostly do repair work here, and so most of the videos on my channel have to do with tips and tricks and repairs and interesting stuff that I get in here in the shop. But occasionally, when I'm doing work, somebody will say, "Hey, I have an old guitar. It's been sitting around. It's kind of busted up, but maybe you could fix it up." And I'll say, "Yeah, I'll take that in as a trade. We'll do a partial trade, and or sometimes even a full trade." And that's how I ended up getting this instrument and also its sister instrument. I have an instrument that is basically identical to this one, same finish and everything. Probably even the same year. It looks almost like a couple went out and bought them together, So I'll go ahead and kind of talk about Harmony guitars for a little bit. Harmony guitars are an American brand that was kind of around, between the early part of the 1900s to the, 1970s or so. And basically kind of what they did was they produced a lot of solid wood guitars that were, all different echelons in terms of price and quality and whatnot. They had also bought brand names, so like Stella, Recording King was a brand that was bought by them, as well as them being acquired by Sears, which had them make their Silvertone line of guitars. And so there's all kinds of different Harmonies out there, different builds, different makes, different woods. And, this is one of their guitars. This model in particular is a little parlor. It's a little parlor that is, it's made of birch or poplar, at least the backsides and soundboard, and as well as the neck, most likely. And the fingerboard is made out of maple. The neck itself has a profile that's a nice soft V, and I happen to really like the soft V. I think that's probably my favorite neck profile overall, just because it ergonomically fits the thumb just perfectly. It allows your fingers to kind of put pressure exactly how much and where you need it in the direction that you need it. It's just a very, very nice neck shape, and I kind of wish that more companies would still produce V-shaped necks. Part of the reason that these necks were shaped like V's oftentimes was because a V profile neck is a little easier to carve by hand, and these necks were carved by hand. So that's a pretty cool thing. This guitar also comes with its original Waverly tuners. These are extremely high quality. They're the original vintage tuners, and once you get these things greased up and lubed, they work great, and these have been greased up and lubed. As far as anything else, it's got a floating bridge, which allows you to kind of play with the intonation a little bit and adjust the action a little bit. This is not the original bridge. This is one that I put on because the original bridge just wasn't going to work after the work that I did on it, which I'll talk about in a little bit. These guitars joining the body at the 12th fret are kind of preferred by some people. Some people say that these guitars that join at the 12th fret have a much different tone quality than guitars that join at the 14th fret, as most of our modern steel strings will join the body at the 14th fret. It's primarily because it kind of pushes the sound hole kind of further towards the hips of the guitar, And I will say that there is a bit of a difference in the characteristics of the tone, though I would also say that there's a lot of other things going on in the tone, including the fact that this guitar here is ladder braced rather than X braced. So as opposed to the braces that run like this diagonally across the soundboard, this has parallel braces that run just across the grain of the wood. And what that is, it's a little less of an efficient system of bracing, but it is a system of bracing that was more common to guitars prior to the 1930s, which is one of the reasons that I started off playing some Woody Guthrie and playing Freight Train on here, because if you're looking for a guitar that's like really going to give you the sound that those old folk guys had, those old country guys and those old blues guys, this is going to be much more along the lines of what they were playing than something with modern steel strings. There's a difference in that it has more sustain, it has a little bit more of a dulcet tone, it's got kind of a different sort of quality to the sound in so many ways that, like, trying to play some of that stuff on an X-brace guitar, when I hear that in recordings, I kind of like, I get why you're doing that. It sounds good, but it doesn't sound like Woody, it doesn't sound like, it's different. So anyway, to kind of get on to talking about this guitar here, maybe why you want to look at this one over some others that you might be seeing of the same variety, because I'm sure that mine isn't the cheapest. These guitars come with a lot of problems. All vintage guitars come with a lot of problems. When going out and buying a vintage guitar, you need to be aware of the fact that it's an older instrument. It's the same thing as going out and buying like an old classic car or like a cool vintage bicycle. If you get this thing that has been around since, the 50s, it is going to have problems that occur as things that move, machines get older. And so the thing is that most of these instruments that you find are in need of a neck reset, which is a very expensive procedure. It's like $450 that I charge for one of those here at the shop. That has already been done on this guitar, which enables me to kind of get this nice, low, comfortable action. If you ever see a guitar that's got high action and a low bridge and a low saddle, that's a guitar that needs a neck reset. This one definitely did need one when it came in, but that got done, and so I'm able to get this really nice low setup on it. And there's even room to move down on the bridge here that I left just in case somebody wants to lower it just a little bit more than it already is. Because the next thing that I'm going to talk about means that you can get away with that, which is that this guitar has been refretted. Another thing that you run into on old vintage guitars a lot of times is that there's a lot of fret wear. There was a lot of fret wear on this instrument here, and so I just went ahead and pulled them all and retrued the board and refretted it. In the process of retruing the board, I did have to do away with the painted on fret markers that these guitars originally have, right out of the box. But unfortunately, there's just no way of getting around that to go in there and retrue the board. I've got to sand on top of here. I got to make it the right shape. But in doing so, I decided that I would go ahead and replace those painted on fret markers with some real inlay dots. And so that's what these are here. And I also went ahead and added a fretboard radius. Most of these guitars came with a flat fretboard, which is pretty common to older parlor guitars, but also a lot less comfortable to play. The reason that we add that radius into modern guitars is because it adds a lot of ergonomics to the instrument. And so I added a 15-inch radius, which is still pretty flat, but it's definitely round. So it's definitely more comfortable to play. And so this instrument, as a result, it'll have a bit of a different looking fingerboard than they will stock, but it's much more comfortable and the inlays are real. And so, if you need to refret this thing down the line, you don't need to do the inlay work. To talk about the other stuff that happened to this guitar when it came in, it did have some cracks, which ended up getting fixed. There was a major crack down here, just full disclosure. There was also a knot down here. When I did the neck reset, that knot kind of came loose. And just kind of the nature of that damaged wood and kind of the moisture and everything involved, I just didn't feel like putting that damaged wood back in there, and so I ended up filling that in. And I think the fill looks a little nicer than the wood would have. So, those are two things. The other thing is that this guitar also came with a really common problem to Harmony guitars, which is that the back had started kind of coming off and the braces had started coming off. And so the braces have all been re-glued. The back has been re-glued, which is work that you will not have to do on this guitar because it's already been done. That's an extremely common thing. A lot of times when you find one of these Harmony guitars, you can kind of shake it around and you can hear the braces kind of moving around inside. And that was because Harmony guitars at points in their history were using what we called sick glue. So it had bacteria in it that caused the glue joints to fail after a number of decades. So most of these have been re-glued. Gibson had the same problem. Recording King had the same problem. There were a number of companies that kind of dealt with this same thing. Also Kay, to a certain extent, had this issue. So there are some guitars, when you look at them and you find them as in vintage, like you just gotta like look at it and go, okay, well, this is gonna need brace re-glues. And this one did, and it got them. So everything on this guitar, playability-wise, is solid. Everything has been fixed up and is cherry. This is not gonna be presenting you with any weird problems. I guess full disclosure on that back repair, it's very difficult to get back repairs on guitars when you're doing an entire re-glue to kind of seat properly, and so it is flush all the way around the back, all around the sides until you get to the lower bout, and there's a little bit of a ledge there, but that's pretty common for doing this kind of thing. I'm actually kind of amazed that this was able to go as flush as it did. Guitars are not designed to have the top or the back pulled off of them like violins are. Violins have that overhang for a reason. It means you can get a knife in there and you can kind of cut the top off, and then you can do your repairs inside, and then you can put the top back on, and nobody's the wiser, because if the sides end up a little cockeyed or whatever, it doesn't matter because you're not going to see it. Whereas on guitars, they're flush. So, it's a much harder job to get these, especially once they've been sitting for a while with that plate off. The wood kind of gains a little bit of a memory, and it kind of wants to do its own thing. But yeah, this came out really nice as far as a guitar that's had its entire back re-glued and all of its braces re-glued. So some other things have been upgraded on this guitar, on top of the fret job, neck reset, and the radius and inlays and everything, and the new bridge. I also went ahead and added a custom nut to this guitar. Now, when I'm carving a nut, I carve them from just bone blanks, just rectangles of wood, of bone, and this is the tool that I'm using for measuring my string slots and spacing. My nuts here are carved for the specific guitar that they're going to go in, and that means that the string spread and everything is going to be perfect for that neck. So I'm not using anything prefab and having to kind of cut corners and sand things off and just kind of deal with the fact that the strings are a little bit further in from the edge of the board than I'd want and all that stuff. This is going to be perfect for the guitar. The nuts that I carve here are also very low friction. So the way that I carve these is that I have a parabolic kind of curve that goes into the nut slots and kind of allows the string to kind of sit in this thing that gently guides it, rather than having the string hit a hard corner and then having to make another hard corner, because strings will hang up on those corners and it will interfere with tuning. In fact, most of the time that people are talking about tuning problems with an instrument, it's because of that nut being carved in such a way that that string is having to make this journey into this very tight corner and then around another tight corner. And that binding can end up storing tension in the string between the nut and the tuner. And you can try it out for yourself the next time you're tuning and you don't see the tuner moving. Try either pushing or pulling on this string up here and seeing what it does, because you'll be surprised. The needle will just jump. So that's something that I try to do, is I try to make these very smooth to the point that the interiors of those slots are nice and gently guiding those strings, and they're also polished out like little mirrors on the bottom, so there's nothing that they're going to be gripping on friction-wise. As I said before, the bridge on this guitar was replaced. The original bridge was not adjustable. I didn't really feel like dealing with the shims and everything because this guitar had obviously kind of been attempted to set up a couple of times. Somebody had gone in there and tried to set it up, and which meant that the bridge had been ground down to almost nothing. And I didn't really feel like there was a lot there worth saving. And so I went ahead and got this archtop bridge, and I put it in. Modified it so that it would fit on a flat top guitar. The other nice thing about this bridge is that it's compensated, so it means that the intonation is better than the original bridge would have been anyway. So, you know, when you play your E, your intonation is going to be pretty good all the way up and down the neck. Another thing that's not terribly common for these guitars. And yeah, it's got some patina to it. It's got a really cool, you know, definitely has those old guitar vibes. People have definitely been playing this one and dragging it around to places, and yeah, it's definitely seen some action. It's got some battle scars on it. Kind of like it. I like guitars that look like they were played and look like they were, you know, brought around places by people who cared about them, and yeah, this guitar is no exception. It looks really cool. It has the sound too. So if you're looking for a guitar, you know, kind of along the lines of the ones, you know, the tone that this guitar will provide, and you're looking for a vintage guitar, and you're looking for one that's not going to present you with a whole lot of problems, you know, this is a pretty good bang for your buck. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people pick up like guitars off of Reverb and stuff that, you know, and they bring them into my shop. They're like, oh, I found this Gibson for like, you know, $600. And I'm like, yeah, you found that Gibson for $600 because it's going to need $1,000 in repairs to get it to play again. That work has already been done on this guitar. And so, and it's also guaranteed. So in getting this instrument, you're getting something basically that's an old guitar without the old guitar problems. So you got all the coolness of the patina, the age, the tone, and looks and everything, without having to have something that may turn out to be a lemon or may turn out to have some ticking time bomb of a problem in there that's waiting to kind of go off on you, which is oftentimes the case. So it's a pretty solid little guy. Like I said, I have another guitar just like this one, so if this one is already sold, you know, that other one may still be up. Down in the description of the video, you will find a link to the Reverb page where I'm selling this instrument. If that Reverb link is still active, going to an active listing, it means that this guitar is still for sale. If it's not, check out Reverb for the sister guitar on my page. And otherwise, give me a call because I do sell vintage instruments here that I fix up kind of along the same lines as this one. I like things going out the door being pretty perfect for players. And I'm willing to adjust setups and tuning and strings and all that kind of stuff if somebody wants that. Also guarantee the work that I do. So like if the braces that I reglue in here come off, you know, spring it back in and I'll fix it, though I've been doing this for a long time and I don't get repairs like that back in here. Also in the description, you'll find a link to my Patreon and my Ko-Fi, and you'll find a link to my website where you can find my pricing information and my contact information, as well as a page that I wrote on caring for stringed instruments. And if you're here watching this video, it means that you either have some instruments around that you want to care for, or some instruments that you are looking to acquire, like this one. So, yeah, this is the cool mid-50s Stella Harmony. Thank you for watching. I'll go ahead and play out.